brothers of metal, sisters of sonic evil, all those who serve our dark lord below. This is your vile priest Gonthog. Welcome back to the Great Metal Debate Podcast. We have for you a must-listen on this episode. You know, we've spoken with many incredible heavy metal musicians, but this may be the best we've ever gotten. My wicked accomplice Brian scored an interview with Cam Pipes, singer from 3 Inches of Blood. Hailing from British Columbia, 3 Inches of Blood is one of the classic Canadian metal bands. They have amazing albums like Advance and Vanquish, Fire Up the Blades, and their most recent offering, Long Live Heavy Metal. Cam and the 3IOB crew just finished a long tour in support of that offering, during which they filmed a revealing documentary called Warriors of the Great White North. Make sure to check out this documentary of the band, available for download on Vimeo.com. It is well worth it. As we cut out to Brian's interview with Cam, don't forget to check out the Great Metal Debate Podcast on SoundCloud.com and YouTube.com. If you like what you hear, be sure to give us a like on Facebook.
Hey, Great Metal Debate fans, welcome to a special interview session. I'm Brian, and with me tonight we have Mr. Cam Pipes of 3 Inches of Blood fame. Cam's a vocalist for the band from Victoria, British Columbia. Cam, welcome to the Great Metal Debate Podcast. Cool of you to join us.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Now, Cam, I always like to start with this question. Many people who come to love a certain style of music have what I like to call a moment, the moment of epiphany, or sort of a semi-religious thing where you say, this is it, this is the music I love, I listen to, and if I can, I'm going to make it till I die. For me, it was Back in Black. For some, it's a concert. For some, it's a video. Did you have one of those moments where it's very meaningful for you and you realized this was it?
Well, it's hard to pinpoint an actual moment, but if I picked like an album like you just did with Back in Black, I'd probably say Iron Maiden Power Slave is probably the one that over and over just kind of keeps coming back, that really reinforces why I like heavy metal and why I play it, and just really what inspires me about the whole genre.
Yeah, that's an excellent moment to have. I actually hear elements of Iron Maiden in some of you guys' music. Were you going to say something? Go ahead.
No,
okay.
You got that right, though. We definitely have that Iron Maiden influence. We've had that comparison a lot throughout our careers, so no, it's pretty accurate. Excellent.
Now, along those lines, when did you understand that your voice wasn't just like this gimmick thing? You could be a vocalist and do this. You started in a school choir, right?
Well, I did a little bit of that when I was like really, really young. I mean, I don't really remember those days too much. It wasn't singing wasn't really something I liked doing until later on. I started in my first bands, maybe when I was like 14 or 15. I kind of just fell into the vocal thing because the guys I first started playing with didn't really want to sing, so I just kind of would belted it out. I started off in punk bands, so it wasn't like you really had to be good anyway, but something I just did intermittently every now and then. And the singing as I do now was something I just kind of developed by accident. I just kind of figured out that it was fun to try and sing like Bruce Dickinson or King Diamond, guys like that, and friends of mine sort of took notice and were like, hey, you should hook up with these guys, and like they're playing metal that would fit your vocals very well, and they don't really have a singer like that. So that's how I joined 3 Inches of Blood, was just like I knew guys who were playing heavy metal, sort of the gallopy, Iron Maiden kind of worship, but and there were people I knew, and then eventually they just kind of got word of what I was able to do, and asked me to do a little guest performance, I guess, on a recording, and it just sort of went from there. And eventually, they just asked me to join the band. And
Yeah. Now, was Justin singing originally, or
no,
and then you were a guest singer, or?
Justin came into it later on. We had like around about 2004, the two main the two guitar players who sort of started the band. They just kind of weren't into it anymore. They were just kind of falling out of favor with the music biz and the whole metal thing in general. So they just kind of decided they wanted to go about their way and do their own thing. And Justin is someone who I had played in a band with before when I had lived in Victoria. But the band had since relocated to Vancouver. So he was one of the first guys I thought of to come into the fold. So I called Justin up and was just like, hey man, like, are you interested in keeping this band going with me? So that's how he came into it. And then down the road, he ended up doing vocal duties as well.
Cool. Did you play an instrument when you first started out?
Yeah, I started playing. Well, I played piano at a very early age. Hated it. Small part of me kind of wishes I'd kept it up just so I had that little bit of extra ability, but that at least gave me some kind of musical base. And then when I met a buddy of mine who I started my first band with, he was a guitar player, and I was like, man, I should learn how to play guitar. It'd be really cool. And he said, why don't you learn how to play bass? It's a lot easier to learn, and you can sing, and we'll just find a drummer. So I was like, okay. So at the unenviable task of telling my parents, I don't want to play piano anymore, and but they took it really well because I was swapping another musical instrument for piano. They were okay with it because they just at least wanted me to be musically creative in some aspects. So they were fine with that.
Yeah,
and my parents were always supportive of us jamming in their basement only when absolutely necessary. But it's good. It's good to have parents like that. So if kids out there are embarrassed that their mom or dad is at their show, don't be, because you're lucky that you should lucky to have parents that'll not only let you jam in their basement or whatever, but they're actually supporting you enough to where they'll come to your show. So don't be embarrassed. I always used to call. So when we would play shows in Victoria and my dad was there, I'd go, he's like, hey, my dad's here. Say hi to my dad.
Cool.
So that kind of thing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to have that support. Now, I was hoping you'd tell the truth, Cam. You know that you became a vocalist when you found out that all the chicks loved the front man, right?
Yeah, totally.
All right. Yeah, I won't make you comment anymore on that for fear of breaking a few hearts.
No, it's fine.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean that there's a lot of rock and roll myths out there, and that one is. I mean, that one's not like a myth, but it's definitely exaggerated, I'm sure.
Sure.
It's sure. I guess the vocalist or the maybe the lead guitarist gets the most attention, but really it all comes down to the charisma of the individual, I guess. And I'm a pretty reserved guy off stage, so and I'm a happily married man, so I don't really put myself out there anyway.
There you go. I just wanted to put you on the spot a little bit. Now I'd ask you about what it's like to be on the road, but Cam, I have seen Warriors of the Great White North, and I think I actually know. Now, it appeared to me, for you guys, it was as much about the lifestyle as it is the music. You guys genuinely seem to love what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we start off playing music, any kind of music, and you should, because it's fun. And I mean, that's certainly why I started playing music. It was fun. You're hanging with your buddies, and then eventually you can play your music for other people. And if you suck, you don't really care too much, or you shouldn't, then because eventually you'll get better. But we do this because it's fun, and I think the secondary aspect of it is because other people like hearing it, and then but then eventually that becomes just as important, I think, as having fun with it. I mean, if it's not fun, then, why do it? But luckily, we've been able to turn this into a career of sorts, and we can make a bit of a living at it. And that's just a bonus. I certainly never anticipated I'd be taking my music, outside of my hometown as far as I have, and going to Europe and Japan and places around the world. So I could sort of look at everything as a bonus after that. But you still got to be humble at the same time. You can be excited about it, but you got to really appreciate what you've got, and that most bands aren't going to get that kind of opportunity. So no matter how popular, successful you are, or you think you may be, I think it's important to stay grounded and just be respectful, because that old saying is, all the people you see on the way to the top are the same people you're going to see on the way to the bottom when you're shit and no one cares about you anymore. So don't burn your bridges, like, no matter how small you think the people you're dealing with.
It didn't appear this way in the documentary itself, but was it uncomfortable having that much of your life under the camera? Were there awkward moments?
I didn't really notice it overall for the most part.
Right.
I think what you don't notice too much in that is, on that tour in particular, I was doing merch for us at the time.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of the backstage stuff, I wasn't there for most of it because I was out front at the merch table, and Tom, who was our buddy who filmed it, he didn't really stroll to the merch booth that often. So but even for the stuff that I was there for, it's pretty easy to, like, just ignore it. Like, I think I can see why people would watch, like, something like that, or a reality show, and be like, how can they just not know it's there and pretend it's not there? They must be putting on a bit of a show. And to some extent, a lot of those shows, they are. But for people like us, I think we're very good at just, maybe we see it in our peripherals briefly, but then once you're getting into like a serious discussion about something, then or especially with the show, then you're not really paying attention to anything else but what you're playing, and you're paying attention to the crowd. So it eventually becomes pretty easily to just kind of, he's there, but you're not really thinking about it. So
well, it didn't come off as a reality show by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh,
it came off as very genuine.
Well, that's good.
Now, I didn't see a lot of fighting, and I don't care about names or details. That's not what I'm talking about. I want to know the process really more. But when there's conflict, is it more about personal or band stuff? And do you just have to take some time off from that, or how's that work?
Sometimes it can be both. Luckily, it's never come to blows in this band.
You mentioned that.
There's definitely been some heated arguments. Some people are better than others at picking their words carefully when there is a disagreement. Others, I mean, not toot my own horn, but people like myself, I think are a little more diplomatic and can use a sort of a more calmer tone to kind of diffuse things. Right. But but also everyone has their kind of hothead moments where they're just kind of gonna lose their shit. But you know what? Eventually, things don't really fester too long. Usually, you just gotta take a little bit of break, and because sometimes things heat up in the van while you're driving, and there's not really a whole lot you can do. And then, but usually once you get to the next gas stop, or once you get to the venue, then usually someone has the sense to be like, okay, man, like, now that we've had a little time to cool off, this is the problem I have with this.
Sure.
This is why, and we're pretty good about being direct and saying, this is why you pissed me off, and I don't like how you did this, and da-da-da-da-da, and then it goes back and forth, and then some kind of understanding is usually reached, and the problem doesn't really build for more than, a couple hours, so.
Cool.
But then at other times, add a little bit of alcohol, and it can get a little more heated than it should, but still, it's never really come to physical stuff, because there's usually somebody who maybe isn't directly involved in the conflict that isn't quite as inebriated or not inebriated at all, that can kind of come in and be the diplomat and diffuse it, and or just kind of help out, be the mediator.
Yeah, alcohol's the fuel for fiends and fools, I've heard
the
say.
Cause of and solution to all of life's problems, as Homer Simpson would say.
Now, where can fans get a hold of the Warriors of the Great White North?
Well, we excuse me, we have it for you can download it now on our we have a page. It's 3iobfilm.com, and you can download it there. It's basically being hosted by Vimeo, and you just can go download it for $5, and there you have it.
It is well worth the $5. Let me just say that straight up. I loved it. Very genuine.
Well, we want to make it accessible. We thought about doing it for free, but of course there's legalities with some of the music that's in it. Their label owning publishing rights and so forth, so they want a piece. So we got to sell it for something. So
all right, well, I think you deserve to sell it for something. So that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, let me move a little bit to the writing process. That always interests me when it comes to being in a band. The potential to go wrong is like one bad line or one bad note away. What's that process like for 3 Inches of Blood?
It's probably much the same as any other band. We just the certain guys are kind of the main songwriters. Myself, I write most of the lyrics.
Right.
And we usually come together once we've got a bunch of ideas, and we kind of start hashing it out, and we all arrange the songs together.
Cool.
Pretty basic, really. I mean, we go with what we like. We critique certain stuff, and we record a lot of just little demos. The guys have guitar players have their little pods that they record onto, and then they'll email us riffs and be like, okay, check this out, and that everyone kind of gets ideas from it. And some songs are written purely by one guy or the other, or sometimes it's written by 2 or 3 people, and it just, the dynamic kind of varies. So,
but it's an amalgam. Everybody puts in at some point.
Yeah,
right?
it ends up being pretty even across the board. Everyone's kind of got about the same amount put in to the song once it's all said and done.
Cool. Well, let's stick with writing for a moment. You guys have some great topics. You talk about women a lot, hockey. You even did a Ronnie James Dio tribute. You got Warriors in there, tribute to veterans and mythology. Now, barring The Preacher's Daughter, are those all themes that the band enjoys as a whole, or are you coming up with all those topics?
Well, for the most part, they're just stuff that comes off the top of my head. We've been very kind of fantasy-driven, mythology-driven over the years, and I like to stick with that, but I also don't want to stay purely in that realm. We're expanding with our themes as time goes on, but just whatever interests me might come up. Like I always wanted to do a hockey song, and I had those lyrics for "Leave It on the Ice" from the last record, but we never really found the right song to fit the lyrics, and then they came up with the riffs for it, and it was a fast driving song, so it just sort of seemed to fit. I don't know. Who knows where it'll go from here, but battles is always something that works, and it's always a good theme. It's just a matter of whether you're going to base it on something historical or base it on a pre-existing fictional story, or are you going to do something that's entirely off the top of your head and completely your own idea. So who knows where it'll go from there, but
that's cool. When I hear "Leave It on the Ice," I wanted to go check my mom into the garage door, but I think she could take me in a hockey fight, so I won't. Now, let's go. Our podcast is basically this huge debate about what makes a song metal, and categorizing seems to be a big issue these days for metal. My partner, Gomthog, he's all about categorizing, and I could kind of care less. some people actually get upset if you misclassify their music. And there are so many types. Is that something that you guys worry about? I mean, what category you fit into?
Not really. I mean, I think some descriptions are more accurate than others.
Yeah.
I think power metal,
Right.
true metal, battle metal is kind of a newer one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Power thrash we get sometimes.
Right.
But basically, I just heavy metal maybe is a little too basic, but that's one I'll just say, well, we're just straight up heavy metal or traditional heavy metal.
Yeah.
Is kind of the most apt description for us. But
okay, cool. Yeah.
we've got elements of lots of different kind of stuff. Like so, our influences are varied. So most of the descriptions are fine, although maybe not the first one I would use.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I hear elements of many bands of different kinds in your music, but you have an originality that sort of stands out. You kind of are 3 inches of blood, so I really like that part of it.
Yeah, I think, when people ask about what did you do about, did you go out about trying to sound a certain way with a record, we don't, and I like to think that while each of our records are their own thing, as a whole, our whole catalog has a feel that's our own, so you kind of know it's our sound, and that's just our process. That's just kind of how we do it, and it's not anything that we set out to do in particular, but that's our writing is as such that we don't repeat ourselves, but I guess we've got our own sound.
Definitely. Well, now, along those lines, let me go back to you personally a little bit. You got a very distinct voice, iconic in some ways, kind of like Udo on steroids, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I try to sing like that, I'm going to rip something out. There's going to be blood and pus and guts. You have this high register. Does that much energy and pitch come natural to you?
Well, it took some time to really control. It used to really kind of hurt my voice a bit in the early days before I was used to doing it every night. I've blown out my voice a couple of times. Once because of a crappy PA system, and then another time just because I wasn't seasoned enough to really have the vocal tolerance. But it's like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, I guess, in a way. You just kind of build up the resistance, and I find the days off are actually what make the show the next day harder, because you've had that day of rest, and like singing every day kind of keeps it in tune and warmed up all the time, and
you're in game shape.
Yeah, exactly. So by playing every night, it's a lot. It gets easier night by night, unless you're sick, of course. But there are ways to just kind of power through that as best you can.
Right. Now, metal vocals there's a great variety of different types these days. There's normal, gravelly voice, sort of heavy, growlers, screamers, operatic, even like symphonic. Where do you see metal vocals heading? And in particular, where do you see your vocals heading? Are you going to stick with this same style?
I don't see why not. I mean, I like to challenge myself as much as I can, but a lot of times that comes down to the way the other guys are writing. Sometimes there are riffs that will challenge my voice in terms of melody and pitch, and sometimes I find the lower registers are what are more challenging for me, because I sing in such a way. It's harder for me to sing deeper when I'm not doing the falsetto scream. Just kind of my quote normal singing voice is the kind of gruffer singing that I do it's harder to get lower because I'm used to being so high. So it was really a struggle at first, but then you just adapt and you figure out what works and what sounds good to you, and you just kind of play around and I learn good by ear. So eventually, if I hear myself back enough on some demos that we might be working out, then
Yeah.
I'll figure out like what sounds good to me, and then what am I going to change up. And
So, Cam, tell us about that EP series you mentioned that you did right before the documentary.
Yeah, it's called Live at Mushroom, and it's a 7-inch vinyl series. So 3
Cool.
volumes of songs we did live in the studio at the famous Mushroom Studios here in Vancouver, BC, right before it closed down. So it's
Excellent.
available through our label's distro site, cmdistro.com, and all the vinyls they're limited edition pressings, and all of them are on a different colored vinyl.
Excellent. Very cool. Very cool. Now, Cam, I'm going to go through what I call the lightning round. It's just a quick answer questions. You just hit me as quick as you can.
Okay.
What's your favorite hockey team?
Vancouver Canucks, baby.
Any hobbies that you have?
I like to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Me too, dude. You don't have to come play.
That's kind of my main thing.
That's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, that.
UFOs, real or not?
I want to believe they are, but I'm not. I don't have any compelling reason to believe that they are.
Fair enough. Yeah. Oh, apologies. All right. What do you do to get up for a show when you're not really feeling it?
I don't know. I the easiest thing I think is just to kind of get up and move around, get the blood flowing. The worst thing to do is just kind of sit around and slouch and just be like, this sucks, you know.
Cool. Okay. The largest crowd you played to?
Probably Wacken 2008. There's like about 50,000 people.
Cool. Now, you can't say yourself, but who's your favorite metal vocalist?
Bruce Dickinson.
Okay, cool. All right, Cam, and let's see here. Finally, let me ask you this. Is there anything you ever wanted to be asked, but you weren't asked in an interview?
Not that I can think of. Like, I've pretty much been asked every question that I can conceive of. I mean, I'm sure there's more that, I haven't got, but,
I tell you what, I will confess this. The first question I had written down for you was, where does your name for your band come from? Until I saw the documentary, and you said, what's the worst question you hate being asked?
That's the most
didn't bode well.
often asked question, I'm sure, for any band. I mean, but yeah, after a while you start
to... Well, don't tell me. I don't want to know.
Yeah. It's not a very interesting story anyway. And it's perfectly fine if the journalist wants to ask that of a band that's essentially brand new, but after a little while, and after being around for more than a decade, you hope you won't hear it anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure my version of how you got that name will be much more imaginative. Let me tell you, can you tell us what's coming up for 3 Inches of Blood?
At the moment, we're just kind of on a bit of a break. Guys are just kind of decompressing, getting refreshed, and just spending some time at home with family. And we do have shows coming up in our kind of region of Western Canada in the next month or two. But for the most part, we're just kind of laying low until we feel like getting creative again.
Cool. And where can fans get merchandise and music for 3 Inches of Blood?
Well, there are links on our Facebook page to our merch. You can always go through JSR Merchandising has some of our stuff as well. Razzmatazz in Europe, if there's any Europeans listening out there. And our music is. You can always get our CDs and vinyl through our label's website at cmdistro.com.
Right.
So that's a few ways to get our music and T-shirts and things like that, and little accessories. So.
Now, I want to encourage our listeners to check out Warriors of the Great White North. It's a great look into a band on tour, and in particular, 3 Inches of Blood on tour. And we're going to have these links up on the Facebook page soon. I want to thank Cam Pipes of 3 Inches of Blood for being with us. Cam, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, I want to encourage our listeners to keep listening. Our next session is probably going to be a debate or a fight, maybe even a fist fight about all things metal. And with that, we're going to be out. Thanks, Cam.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.